Want to make a difference in your community but not sure how? Go to GoFundMe.com right now and start a GoFundMe. Seriously. Your next fundraiser doesn't have to start in a school parking lot or a church basement. You can start a GoFundMe today in just minutes. Fundraise for yourself, a friend, or family member, or an organization. All that matters is that you care about them. GoFundMe is the trusted place to fundraise for what you care about. With no pressure to hit your fundraising goal, but tons of tools to help you reach it, you can confidently start fundraising right now. Whether it's creative, local, or critical, your cause matters. And there's a reason why GoFundMe is backed by millions and chosen by fundraisers everywhere. It works, and it matters. GoFundMe helps you make a real difference. Start your GoFundMe today at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com. GoFundMe.com. This is a commercial message brought to you by GoFundMe.
Hey, Howard.
In case you need a lawyer, here's my business card. I'm attorney Howard Ankin.
Oh, hey, Howard.
If you or someone you know has been hurt at work, Ankin Law can get the medical bills paid, the lost wages reimbursed,
Oh, hey, Howard.
and the compensation you deserve.
Hey, Howard.
We're one of the largest filers throughout the state of Illinois of workers' compensation claims. We're here to help. Call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal, that's Ankin Law.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Thursday night, June 19, 2025, as we record this new episode. The Chicago White Sox returned from a 1-5 road trip against the Texas Rangers and Houston Astros last week, and they were greeting the St. Louis Cardinals for a 3-game home series, hoping to snap a 5-game losing streak and continue what started as a productive month of June. Instead, the White Sox were crushed on Tuesday, losing 12-2. After Wednesday's game was rained out, the White Sox played a doubleheader in which they had a lead late in Game 1, but Cam Boozer couldn't hold on to that lead, and in Game 2, down 6-1, the White Sox stormed back thanks to an Andrew Benintendi grand slam. But despite having the game-winning run on third base with 1 out in the bottom of the 9th inning, they couldn't get that run home, and they lost in extra innings, completing the sweep for St. Louis. Now the losing streak reaches 8 games, and Andrew Benintendi is trying to convey positivity from the clubhouse point of view.
Yeah, I mean, we keep putting ourselves in positions to win. I think we had 1 or 2 tonight. It's, just keep working on it, I guess. I mean, they got some good guys on the mound. Romero's a tough at bat with that sinker, and he gets a lot of ground balls. So I'm really just trying to just keep going, just keep putting ourselves in that position. At some point it'll turn. In these kind of games, there's not really much to be said. I think everybody knew what we could have done, and we didn't get it done. So I think it's turn the page. It was a long day, so get on a plane and get the draw.
White Sox manager Will Venable, who has preached even before this season began that he was going to be leading from an empathetic state, shares the same sentiment with Benintendi being able to move on from this tough series.
Credit to these guys. It's the same thing every time we hit a tough spot. They flush it and take what they can from it to make them better for next time and just continue to fight. And that's what we did today all day, and that's what we'll continue to do tomorrow.
The White Sox now travel to Toronto this weekend, in which they are 1-8 in their last 3 seasons playing there. Are we looking at a 10-game losing streak for the White Sox? We'll discuss that, recap what happened against St. Louis, chat about Noah Schultz's first start in AAA, how is Andrew Vaughn doing these days, and why you should never go full White Sox, especially in the College World Series. Joining me is Sox Machine's managing editor, Jim Margulis. Hello, Jim. I was hoping that the White Sox could win 2 out of 3 against the St. Louis Cardinals. And they had a chance. They had a chance today to sweep the doubleheader and make that dream come true. But they got swept. And the White Sox are now on a 50-win pace. We heard from Benintendi and Will Venable in the intro of the podcast and their post-game comments, flushing this away, moving on. They got a game the next day in Toronto. But I do wonder, are we going to start seeing guys press in the White Sox clubhouse? Especially, it seems like this revolving door between Charlotte and Chicago right now of exchanging players back and forth and who's playing well, who needs resets, who's banged up. Let's bring in somebody because someone has to go on the injured list. There seems to be a lot in flux right now with the White Sox roster. And with them losing 8 straight games, now I'm wondering, Jim, if this is going to make guys press.
Yeah, I think when it comes to pressing, maybe there are different kinds of pressing, like offensively, as we talked about last time on the road. How would you be able to tell pressing from their normal struggles when they're not drawing walks? They don't really have a great read on the starter until like the 5th or 6th inning. And then like, is that pressing or is that just an offense that is full of rookies and fringe players? So I was happy to see that they scored 12 runs in 3 games against St. Louis, scoring 6, Andrew Benintendi grand slam. Some big moments, some quiet moments, but also some nice innings and sequences and some power to balance it out. So, if we are counting on that theory that the White Sox play better at home because of the equipment that they have at home and can't bring on the road, then that's a feather in our cap there, but also gives us something to at least, have a better idea on in terms of like, if they are pressing, if they only score 3 runs in 3 games at home, then perhaps you could say the same thing. I think if you're going to see it, again, relief pitching is not an area where you can tell if there's pressing because there's just been so much influx, especially in high leverage situations, that how would you know pressing from just struggling or finding the guy who isn't working? Probably when it comes to pressure getting to them, defense is maybe the one area where you could see things collapse. Plays not being made. Sometimes I think you see Will Venable pressing when you see how many times they bring in the infield, especially early in games. Trying to prevent them from falling behind 2-0 when it's the first inning. Will you got?
It seems so. That's a strategy, though. Isn't it?
It is a strategy, and it's an ethos, I guess. But I think it does, lend itself to feeding into the idea that we cannot fall 2 runs behind. We will not be able to make it up. Venable packages as, we want to be aggressive both on the base paths and in the field. We want to take chances to swing the game whenever it's in our control. And I guess where I would differ is that I don't consider that situation being in control. I think it's a chance, but I think it's a chance you take when it's the 7th inning. And being down 2 runs makes a bigger difference than being down 2 runs in the first. So that's one area where sometimes you can see it pressing, and we've seen it a few times when it comes like double steals. You're trying to get the runner at second because you really want it out, and then forgetting about the runner at third or throwing to the wrong base, etc. I think that's where you can see it, and sometimes you do. Sometimes with Lenine Sosa, you can't tell the difference between pressing and just it's Lenine Sosa in the field. Brooks Baldwin had a similar thing going on with him, and so that's one reason why I wonder if Brooks Baldwin's in AAA, they kind of minimize the amount of preventable mistakes, especially if they insist on playing Baldwin in the outfield. But yeah, I think that's where I would be on guard for having things collapse is in the field, because that's one area where you can't just tip your cap to the pitcher, or you can't, it's not the starter saying, I had a bad game, or it's not the reliever saying, to try to throw a second inning. It's a case where it is, most case unforced errors being forced because, you really don't know if you're going to be able to score 3 runs tonight, or you really don't know if you're going to be able to hit a parade of right-hand relievers, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I do wonder moving forward, trying to snap this 8-game losing streak, how the White Sox handle the late inning situations. Because I'm glad you mentioned the defense, because that could blow up a game. If all of a sudden relief pitchers cannot find the zone, I think you make a good point, Jim. That might just be normal for this White Sox bullpen, but could really tighten the screws and amplify their inability to throw strikes and being able to hit with runners in scoring position. That's what I'm going to be paying attention to, and we'll preview this more as we look ahead to the Toronto series this upcoming weekend. But there was opportunities to win today. They missed out. And they had the lead late in game one. Cam Boozer can't hold on to it, gives up 3 runs. They lose 5-4. They had the game-winning run on third base with 1 out. Contact play is on. Tauchman's trying to score. And again, the second time this season, trying to score either the go-ahead or the game-tying run in Cleveland. In this case, the game-winning run. Tauchman hurts himself running to home.
Yeah, it's well, you're going back to the idea of like can't tell if they're struggling or pressing. It reminds me of the Onion article about TJ Maxx. Difficult to tell if it's hit by a recession because of just all the merchandise strewn in the aisles and all the baskets of mismatched stuff. Like, are they struggling to fill shelves and keep workers employed, or are they just being TJ Maxx? And I think it's the same thing with the White Sox, and like Tauchman, like just breaking down again. And yeah, contact play with Mike Tauchman, had a question about that. Again, that's a case where they are pressing, and it's a case where the bullets are limited by that time. Like he had Kyle Teal in left field. That was the counter move to pinch running for Mike Tauchman, and was like, all right, you're going to play Kyle Teal in the outfield, which they had to anyway because he got hurt. But you've seen Tauchman on the base path saving his bullets, like not hustling when he doesn't have to. He's on that Tony La Russa not hustling plan. And, here's proof of why, because as you mentioned, second time he's been hurt doing it. It's when you talk about like these innings where, especially like, and I think extra innings exacerbates this a little bit when you have like Miguel Vargas ground out as the last hitter in regulation. Then he starts with the, as the Manfred man on second base. And then it's a matter of like, okay, your best hitters are out. And, this whole idea of like the White Sox having some decent hitters with an idea of a strike zone and a plan. But then once you get through them, if an opposing team can limit them, and if they do any damage, it's singles or walks 90 feet at a time. Then you start getting to the soft part of the White Sox lineup where it runs out. And that's where you start needing like, it's terrible we're saying this, but you need Luis Robert Jr. to come through when he just does not look like he can do damage on anything. Like they're just throwing him sweepers, and it seems like he's just feeling for the ball, and everything's being popped up to the right side if he makes contact at all. But I mean, like it's like they can wait out the Tauchmans and the Mydroths and the Vargases of the lineup and wait till you get to like Austin Slater versus a righty. That's where I think you get, or you get Vinny Capra because he's been subbed into the game because of, pinch hitting earlier. So yeah, it's an underpowered team. Yeah. The relief corps' issue, especially like Cam Boozer, if his velocity is reduced, and the White Sox are going to evaluate him to see if anything's up. Like they thought he was going to be, if not the chief high leverage option, because Mike Clevenger was also in the conversation. He was going to be at least an important factor against lefties in late innings. And he's been very vulnerable to just either command lapses or getting hit by righties. And hasn't been going well for him. And now if he's missing 2 ticks, and that doesn't bode well for sustainable like just stuff. I think there could be some more games that where most of the team does enough to win and the bullpen is back to crapping out again.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for White Sox fans because again, they started this month 5-3. They had a winning homestand against Detroit and Kansas City. Then they won that first game against the Astros on the road. The White Sox are 5-3 in June. There's a lot to be happy about. The vibes are good. And they followed up with an 8-game losing streak. And I could already sense from White Sox fans on social media and even a little bit in the comment section for Sox Machine, Jim, I can't go through another 10-game losing streak. Not sure after last year.
Sure you can.
I mean, we can.
Yeah.
But most White Sox fans, it's summertime in Chicago. If this is what you guys are going to be now, all right, if we're back to being a 50-win team or worse, peace out. I'm gonna go distract myself in other ways, and the White Sox can't afford that. They just can't afford that. And now being 5-11 this month,
that's why they have Justin Ishbia, I guess, with capital infusions, because they can't afford it. Literally, they can't. Yeah.
here's what the White Sox have coming up. Now they're 5-11 in June. Upcoming series against Toronto. Then they're back home against Arizona and San Francisco with Rafael Devers. And after you're done with that homestand, congratulations, you get to go to Los Angeles to face the Dodgers. So, Jim, can the White Sox regain some footing to avoid a sub-10 win month of June? Because if they don't win 10 games, that's going to be the second month this season. April being the first, the White Sox did not win at least 10 games in a month.
It gets tricky, yeah. I mean, they do have, if they can just wait it out till the 4th of July weekend, they have the Rockies there. So it's just around the corner. The one, based on me already writing them off, like I had the Diamondbacks being left for dead, and then maybe not left for dead, but just, really struggling to overcome just the pitching staff woes they already had before Corbin Burns went down, and instead, like, they've rebounded a little bit. But, given that the White Sox hit well at home and the Diamondbacks occasionally have these really tough games against teams they should beat or teams that they feel like they have under control, maybe that's a series where there's potential for them to break out. But yeah, no, it's tricky. Like, this Texas series where they, kept Texas in check, and not coming away with a win. That's one where just a better team, a team that might be projected to win. Yeah, a normal bad team that's projected to win 65 to 70 games in a season versus, 50s or whatever. That's the kind of game that those teams win. Whereas the White Sox are 4-20 now in one-run games. And, I think for the fans who are tuning out or keeping a very casual distance from the White Sox, there might be a little more to watch in terms of, like, I got nothing to do tonight. Shane Smith starting, Davis Martin starting. Cool. I like watching them. I'll have them on in the background. Oh, I heard Kyle Teal is doing better. I want to see his at-bats. I want to see how he's coming along. Like, there are independent reasons to watch the White Sox. But yeah, in terms of like an overall enterprise, staking your hopes on them, aside from these still unbelievable videos of the Pope of all people either wearing a White Sox cap or responding to "Go White Sox" chants in the Vatican. That's really the biggest source of White Sox excitement right now. Everything on the field is more or less like, one-run losses.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Want to make a difference in your community but not sure how? Go to GoFundMe.com right now and start a GoFundMe. Seriously. Your next fundraiser doesn't have to start in a school parking lot or a church basement. You can start a GoFundMe today in just minutes. Fundraise for yourself, a friend, or family member, or an organization. All that matters is that you care about them. GoFundMe is the trusted place to fundraise for what you care about. With no pressure to hit your fundraising goal, but tons of tools to help you reach it, you can confidently start fundraising right now. Whether it's creative, local, or critical, your cause matters. And there's a reason why GoFundMe is backed by millions and chosen by fundraisers everywhere. It works, and it matters. GoFundMe helps you make a real difference. Start your GoFundMe today at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com. GoFundMe.com. This is a commercial message brought to you by GoFundMe.
really don't cut it, especially when you're 4-20 in one-run games. Like, it'd be a thing where, like the series against Houston, where they win a close one, they lose a close one, get blown out once. Like, that's the kind of ball you expect from a White Sox team. But yeah, losing 8 in a row where they lose every close one and then they get blown out occasionally, just like that's pretty depressing. And in terms of staking your mood on it, you can see why you wouldn't.
With Will Venable in that 4-20 record with one-run games for the White Sox this year, do we have enough data to dish out how much of a percentage of blame goes onto Will Venable? I mean, he's a rookie manager, and I'm wanting to give him a pass for his first year because, again, this is a pretty poorly constructed team for a rookie manager to navigate their first year managing in the majors. And he's consistent. He told us in the winter meetings he's going to lead by empathy, Jim. Mm-hmm. And he still is, despite an 8-game losing streak. We're on pace to only win 50 games. We're 4-20 in one loss in one-run games. But I am starting to wonder, at what point does this start to turn, Will? Or is this simply, I need better talent in order for any of this to turn and have more productive results?
We've talked about the run differential before and how the White Sox run differential is way better than last year's. And so I would take the number of one-run losses, not positively necessarily, but just more reflective of a more professional team, a more invested team. So, yeah, I mean, there are games where you might second guess them, like running out of players or being very aggressive in substitutions. I think when it comes to the manager, I would say Michael Kopech or the Reynaldo Lopez era, where like they were just the default closer, the default high leverage option with Pedro Grifol, and Lopez did not have his best fastball. Kopech only had a fastball, walking guys, not throwing his cutter and struggling, and Grifol just wouldn't pivot off them. Like, he saw it as like almost defeat or embarrassing his players for taking them out of those high leverage roles when they did not have their best stuff. That's something I would assign to a manager. When it comes to like the White Sox not having a back end of the bullpen really, and some of the games turning on that, that's where I would say that, it's probably more the talent, and we haven't really been able to see. I think to the extent that Venable has a signature, it's, being willing to empty his bench, being willing to chase wins, play everyone and chase wins, and try to really maximize opportunities within an inning at the expense of the end of a game. And we've just seen a couple times the White Sox run out of players, and sometimes they put themselves in position to lose by 1 run because they scored 1 run and then ran out of players. And so that's why I think it's not necessarily, it's partially reflective on him, but partially reflective of like trying to keep games close, or having the ability to not let games get away, to be able to try to, be down 2 in the 8th inning and score 1 run, or, just, have a starter go 4 in the bullpen, needs to go 5 scoreless innings. Instead, the wheels come off after 3. I think that's more of a case of just not quite having enough talent to where we can really understand the impacts of Venable's decision-making and how he evaluates which players are best for what situations.
Yeah, I just didn't want to overlook. Like, I don't want to make a mistake that I'm overlooking something that Venable's doing, because nothing jumps out to me like the previous 2 seasons with Pedro Grifol. Like, we had something every episode that we could point out, like, Pedro, what's the thought process here? I haven't had many of those with Will Venable. So when you asking the question, if we get this question asked, when is this going to get better, guys? I think the answer is when the talent gets better. Okay, well, when is that happening? That's a question for Chris Getz, and we won't really get an opportunity to ask him that where he can give us a realistic answer until if we send James to the GM meetings in November, or we chat with Chris Getz at the winter meetings in Orlando during the winter meetings in December.
Yeah, when they set the budget, when they find out, the capital infusions, what does that mean? Is that for fun or business or pleasure when it comes to, that kind of money? The one area now you mentioned it in terms of like things that aren't necessarily, or things that are solely on Venable that might be hurting the team is on your agenda. So I don't know if I'd be spoiling for saying it when it comes to.
Are we going to talk about Vinny Capra?
Yeah.
Why
we've seen
is
this
Vinny
before.
Capra a thing?
We've seen this before with Joshua Palacios. Like there's now been 2 veterans where they show up on the roster, then all of a sudden are like, another team's cast off is in the middle of things. And why? And like Vinny Capra, I wrote about this on Sox Machine, watching Vinny Capra get 4 starts in 6 games while Brooks Baldwin is hitting 400 in the International League. And, the whole concept of Vinny Capra was like, he's a guy you don't have to play. Like that was the whole idea, was he can play a lot of positions, good defender. Like a Danny Mendick who can't, a poor man's Danny Mendick basically is what Vinny Capra is. Which is
poor man's Danny Mendick. Poor Danny. Danny had his struggles, but I never thought there could be a poor version of Danny Mendick.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, that version of Danny Mendick hits 100 instead of, low 200s. But yeah, he's somebody who, if Venable goes crazy with his late game substitutions and you need somebody who can play any of 3 positions, maybe outfield if you have to, like he's the guy you can play and you hope that he doesn't come up in extra innings, even though he might, but you just like, hey, at least he got to extra innings. It would be his mindset.
He's the break glass in case of emergency player.
Yeah, he's the we don't want Tyler Alexander hitting again type player. But yeah, it's when he's in the middle of things versus being that player, and he just slips into that mode, like he slipped into with Palacios, where all of a sudden like he's batting cleanup and hitting lefty on lefty when this guy just showed up after being non-tendered and like the White Sox were able to claim him. Sometimes I think, there's a bit of perspective loss with counting on guys who haven't proven it anywhere else and are suddenly thrown into the major league roster. I think that's maybe partially a byproduct of the very odd roster construction, or just the slapdash nature of it, to where guys are signed from other teams, minor league teams, or, like trading for Miguel Castro and putting him immediately on the major league roster from, AAA Round Rock, or signing Adrian Hauser, who's been great. Castro struggled, Hauser's been great, but just these guys show up out of nowhere, whether they've been in the majors or minors, and all of a sudden, like, they're as much a member of the 26-man roster as everybody else. And that's partially because there isn't enough talent already on the roster to distinguish themselves as real White Sox versus temporary ones. But sometimes I think Venable could stand to keep that in mind in terms of how did you get here? And that probably says something about how much we rely on you to get these at-bats or be in this lineup position of players who would normally have arrived at the White Sox being signed with some intent.
Yeah, because there's some out there, and I think they make a point that Brooks Baldwin, probably not a major leaguer. Probably your standard quadruple A type of player, shuffles back and forth between AAA and the major leagues. There's some out there that say that Brooks Baldwin's not very good. Okay, Vinny Capra's worse. Like, you cannot have a bat in his hands. At least Brooks Baldwin can surprise you with a little power. There's nothing with Capra.
Yeah, he's 5'8".
His OPS is 382.
Yeah.
Like, on that contact play with Tauchman, it's Capra at the plate. And for Mike Tauchman, the contact play is on. You are the game-winning run. If it gets to the infield or the shortstop or second baseman bobble it, you got a chance to win the game.
Yeah.
Vinny Capra hits a ground ball to Nolan Arenado. Of all people in the Milky Way galaxy, that is like one of the last infielders you want to hit a ground ball to.
Yeah, that's like
he's going to make that play.
Yeah, that's the Family Guy bit, the Animal Planet show. fast animals, small children or slow children. Like that's what it reminded me of. Just like, and you know, speaking of second guessing Venable, that's a case where contact play with Mike Tauchman with Vinny Capra at the plate. I'd rather have Tauchman on third after a ground out than, you know, you have the ability for a wild pitch. Yeah. Ability for a wild pitch or an error or something like that creates something funny where, Tauchman can still score versus, having to run on one of the best third basemen ever, or, anybody else in the, Cardinals infield. Just, Tauchman, the way he's running and the way like he's not confident in his starting and stopping, like just give him a break, and let him be on third and see if something weird happens, because it is the second game of a doubleheader. Players are tired. The best bullpen options are not being used. Everybody's compromised. See if something weird happens. Also, it's raining. Like, see if something weird happens.
I think with the veterans right now being played as much, I think this is a whole front office strategy of hopefully one of these vets catches lightning in a bottle and I can ship them away before the trade deadline.
Not going to be Vinny Capra, though.
It's not going to be Vinny Capra.
Yeah.
If Tauchman has to go on the injured list, that really hurts your chances of moving him until you get closer to the trade deadline. I just feel like, how many players have the White Sox used already?
51.
They've already used 51 different players. We're not even halfway through the season.
I had to think, like, did they bring anybody else up since the last ones? Who's new? And no, because Owen White was already
counted for.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's a part of me that's like, Chris Getz, you need to kind of step in here and you need to DFA Vinny Capra and lean on Brooks Baldwin and give him more playing time. But like, to your point, Capra has started 4 of the last 6 games, which means that Chase Meitraut's being moved off shortstop. We had a whole podcast segment raving about how well Chase Meitraut's been playing defensively. Look at his defensive run saved, look at Baseball Savant. He's doing well at defense at shortstop. Well, let's move him over to second. Clearly, you're clearing a path for Colson Montgomery as soon as you're ready to go.
Who's struggling
for Colson
again.
Montgomery, who's back to struggling again. Well, forget that idea. Let's go back to Vinny Capra. It's like, this is the same thing he did during spring training. So this is where right now, in the midst of an 8-game losing streak, and just wondering how are the White Sox going to get over the hump? How can they win these close games? And you can just hear it in the stands, especially at home games. It's like, why am I watching player X? I don't have a good answer for it. And we are the ones that have been podcasting forever about this team, Jim. Mm-hmm. And if we at Sox Machine can't give you a clear reason why, even with having James Fegan now reporting for us in the White Sox clubhouse, and what the thought process is going on here for the White Sox, all I can say is we're in this position until I think after the Major League Baseball draft, and certainly until the trade deadline. So can everyone hold on for 6 weeks? It's going to get weird. They're probably going to exceed 60 different players that they have used in the season before even getting to the trade deadline, which 60 players in a season for a 162-game season is wild. They may reach 70 players before the end of this season, which is absolutely crazy. But yeah, Vinny Capra, I'm with you. Why is he a thing? Why are we giving up so quickly on some of the younger players? Do you not believe in them? Are you sure you want to send that kind of message to them? There's a lot of confusion right now. This is a 50-win team. Why am I watching Vinny Capra? If I'm going to watch this team sink, Jim, give me Brooks Baldwin. Like, give me some of the young guys.
Well, it's, a guy like Vinny Capra or, Josh Rojas, even if you go up the chain, they make more sense to play if it is like a 65-win team. We are stringing together some wins. We are giving the pitching staff the support it needs defensively. We're playing better baseball. Free agents will come here, or prospects will come up understanding how to win games at a better rate than we did before. We have the framework for just closing out games, having effective defense, everything like that. But yeah, when you're losing 8 in a row, sliding back down to 50 wins, that's when it gets tougher to justify playing the defender who does nothing else. And you get in these one tool guys, and then the defense collapses, and then you have nothing. I think the thing with Brooks Baldwin, I wrote about this, as part of the Vinny Capra piece, is saying that I think his progress is going to be hard earned. I think his success is based on aggression and being very confident in his hit tool. And I think major league pitchers just use that against him very well. I think AAA pitchers are more concerned with getting themselves right, being in the strike zone, executing pitches, and they're not necessarily in meetings trying to figure out how to dismantle hitters, which I think the major league game planning is more based on. Like, everybody in the majors is there to win that game that day versus, work on a certain pitch, work on, a adjustment in the delivery. They are all finished products more or less, and anything they're fixing, they're doing on the fly. And when teams are going against him, just like, how are we going to get him out? Like, let's just make a strike zone really, 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 really big. Like, that's, I think, what they do. And I think, pitchers in AAA are like, I can't afford to do that because I can't have my walk rate be this high, or else I might not be considered for the next roster, either the promotion opportunity, or if they're trying to make changes in the 40-man, I could be exposed to DFA limbo if I walk too many guys. I need to be in the strike zone. And so I think Baldwin thrives in that environment where, pitchers are coming to him. But if pitchers are like confident enough to where, like, I don't have to come to you, then I think he's in more trouble. So I think there is a major league player in there. I just think the success is going to be hard earned. And I think if you say just play Brooks Baldwin, I think that could be very tough to watch. If you just play him 20 games in a row, or like 18 out of 20, that could be tough. Like, that's kind of what his May looked like, where he was kind of drowning. And if they aren't content to play him at one position, they really want to stress that he's a utility type, then it's probably not going to be easier on the defensive side either. So that's, I think, my word of caution to the bald eagles out there. I think if we're trying to come up with the alcoholics, trying to think of everybody gets one, I guess I'll go with the bald eagles for the fan group. That would be my word of caution, is that his particular struggles could be tough to watch if he's just left to try to figure them out as he goes along.
Homework assignment. And this could be great even for the Sox Machine comments, but this might be a post idea. Could we be looking at the worst offensive production for the Chicago White Sox in franchise history at the shortstop position?
Can't be.
Or is Chase Maidroth saving it?
And like, in terms of like just how many bad offenses.
Jacob Amaya.
Yeah.
You had Amaya. You have Vinny Capra. These are sub 400 OPS guys that have gotten starts at shortstop. Baldwin.
I'm inclined to say no. I mean, Maidroth might be saving it, but in terms of, that's one case where I would be inclined to say no, they've had to have worse or equally bad, just because they've had a ton of bad offenses over the course of their history. And shortstop is one position where they wouldn't count on them hitting. So I think they probably have punted that position plenty of times offensively to try to win games 2-1 over the course of their, as we know, 125 years of existence.
Yeah, this is open mind podcast listeners. I don't have anything right now. That's the homework assignment, but just something that popped in my head watching and looking at White Sox player stats so far this year. Amaya got a bunch of starts at shortstop. Vinny Capra's getting starts at shortstop. You're right about Brooks Baldwin being overly aggressive, but his OPS is almost 200 points higher than Vinny Capra.
It was sinking, though.
It is sinking.
Down.
Yeah, it's going down, but I'd rather see that than whatever I'm seeing with Vinny Capra. Last thing to touch on with the St. Louis series, Sean Burke, really strong innings after the first, like his second and all the way going into the sixth inning. Sean Burke was pretty strong. That's the theme this year for Sean Burke. In first innings of his starts, 13 runs allowed, 10 earned runs in the first inning. So 13 starts this year for Sean Burke. And that's what he's allowing in the first inning. All innings after the first, his season ERA is 4, which is pretty good for a rookie in the major leagues. So, Jim, should the White Sox always skip Sean Burke in the first inning? Should Sean Burke always have an opener to get over this mental block?
I would say no, just because if you are losing 112 games in a season, or you're projected to, and it's kind of like the pitcher equivalent of playing Brooks Baldwin every day. Like, no, try to play him through his struggles, try to develop him. But I think it's a decent idea to go to the opener every once in a while, both because like this is something that he could prove very valuable for him as he goes along. Also, I think it's good for Venable to practice it. It's one of the few things he can do in his control. And so I think it's a good thing to occasionally exercise that muscle and have players know that this is going to be a valid strategy for us. No need to be alarmed or take offense to it. This is how we feel it can win games, and occasionally roll it out, get players used to it. So I think it should be implemented once in a while, but not enough to completely give up on the idea that either he should get off to better starts, or maybe he should have easier way to get a feel for pitches against, like, especially left-handed batters or something like that. If they've stacked good lefties against him earlier in the lineup, it's good practice for him. But I think, just sprinkling in the opener every once in a while, either give him a break or just to practice, I think doesn't hurt in his case, because either way, like the way it was implemented last time, like Burke still threw 6 innings, Cannon, almost completed the rest of the game. So like they didn't seem to be thrown off by it. So yeah, keep practicing it. Oh, sorry. By the way, I looked up the Fangraphs actually makes it easy to split individual franchise seasons at positions. And right now, according to WRC Plus, the 2025 White Sox are getting the 10th worst production from shortstop at 60 WRC Plus. The all-time low is 1944 at 43. Mm-hmm. However, that's a World War II season. That was all weird. A whole bunch of, underqualified players were in the majors. However, like very modern day example, a lot of listeners remember 1999, the Mike Caruso led year. That's one where they're running in second. In terms of, you had the World War II season, and then you have 1999, where Mike Caruso leading the way.
I wonder if you take away Chase Maedrott's production at shortstop, where the White Sox are. But we're looking at the 10th worst in franchise history offensive production at shortstop. Way to go, Chase! You're carrying the position. Hopefully, you get more starts there. To help out those numbers.
I forgot how bad Mike Caruso was. Like I knew, but I didn't know or forgot it was like 43.
Way too young. That was a bold move by the White Sox.
Yeah. And yeah, so 1999, like, because he hit 306.
Back injury and he never played again, right?
He hit 306 his rookie year. And then 250, but like the emptiest 250. And that was 1999 when the offensive environment was out of control. So, in 2025, like his line, a 577 OPS is not a 47 OPS plus. That's probably closer to like 70, I'm guessing, or something like that. So it'd be like bad, but not, worst player in baseball bad, which is kind of what Caruso was. Yeah. Also here's another case of just how much the game has changed, or how much like, teams would realize like, oh, this is just untenable. 12 stolen bases, 14 caught stealings. So 12 for 26 as a base stealer, along with a 47 OPS plus. And then let me see, in the field, 24 errors. Yeah. Wow. It's a case where like, defensive runs saved did not exist yet, but the total zone, which is, a bit.
Yo, it's D-Lo. I'm partnering with Ro. Women, y'all feel that? It's sexy. But if you're stressing about your performance, throws you off. That's why I rock with Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks dissolve under your tongue and hit fast so you're ready when the moment pops off. you feel like a superhero. And satisfying your partner, that's key. Rose Sparks help you last longer, stay fuller, and keep the whole vibe right. With Prescribe, new patients get $15 off their first order. Hit up ro.co/backyard and to see if Rose Sparks are right for you. That's ro.co/backyard and see if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved. Do not undergo FDA safety effectiveness or manufacturing review. For full safety information, go to ro.co/safety-info.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Hit or miss when it comes to a metric compared to what StatCast has nowadays, what defensive run saved is. That was at -10. So yeah, kind of failing in all three facets.
And then Jose Valentin saved the day for the White Sox. That's the important thing to remember. That's the brand new segment on Sox Machine. Let's remember some guys. Maybe during the course of the year, we'll do that. The White Sox now head north of the border. They go to Toronto, Canada to face the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays, a team that I am selling, are 40-34. They're third place in the American League East. If the season were to end today, the Toronto Blue Jays would be the 5th seed in the postseason. Streak-wise, they lost their last game. They are 5-5 in their last 10. They're very good at home. They're 24-14 this season in Toronto. Offensively, the Blue Jays average 4.32 runs per game. Their team OPS is 727 for the season. That's 10th in Major League Baseball. However, at home, they have a team OPS of almost 800, 799. That's the third best in Major League Baseball. So the Blue Jays offense at home is hitting as the third best in Major League Baseball. This is going to be a tough test for White Sox pitchers this weekend. On the pitching side, the Blue Jays need starting pitching help. They really do. If they're going to stay in this race and they're going to be active and actually try to contend, they need starting pitching help before the trade deadline. Their starter ERA is 4.72. That's 26th in Major League Baseball. The bullpen ERA for the Blue Jays, though, 3.60. That's good for 11th in Major League Baseball. So the first 5 innings is going to be really key for the White Sox if they're going to steal a game against the Blue Jays. Your pitching probables for this series, Friday night at 6:07 p.m. Central Time. The Dart, Davis Martin will take the ball, to be announced for the Blue Jays. Saturday, this is a 2:07 p.m. Central Time start. Aaron Savali makes his second start for the White Sox against Jose Barrios. And then on Sunday at 12:37 p.m. Central Time, it's to be announced for the White Sox. This might be a bullpen day, and it's old friend Chris Bassett getting the ball on Sunday. As I mentioned in the intro, Jim, the White Sox are 1-8 in the last 3 years at Toronto. And with the Blue Jays offense hitting as well as they have at home this year, again, almost an 800 OPS as a team, what are the White Sox going to have to do here to steal at least one game against the Blue Jays and not trying to make this a 10 or 11 game losing streak by the next time we podcast?
Score some runs is kind of the idea.
It's just that simple, right?
Yeah. I mean,
really
like,
easy.
Not a ton of runs. I think having a couple games with 5, that could win a game.
Well, that's not get too crazy.
Yeah, it's that's what we're talking about here when it comes to expectations. But I mean, the White Sox are pitching well enough. The Blue Jays, I'm looking forward to watching them. Like sometimes, I think at this point in the year, especially as we're approaching the halfway point, and you start to see rosters shift and Plan A's fall by the wayside and Plan B start to step up. Like the Blue Jays have a few of those guys, like Addison Barger, who is hitting pretty well, and all of a sudden is just especially pound for pound, or like coming on late and leading the Blue Jays in a lot of like offensive stats, especially since like he started taking over. Like he's all of a sudden a big factor in things, while Santander has struggled, and the Dalton Varsho has been missing games. Like they've had their front line. George Springer wasn't expected to contribute. I guess Springer's sapped Santander's life force and is powering himself in that regard, and Santander looks like Springer. But yeah, it's they're a case where the guys that thought might hit haven't hit, but then they've had some surprising performances elsewhere. It's like a balanced lineup. And is it a case where they could fall off because you're not seeing the MVP grade Vladimir Guerrero Jr. season, and there isn't anybody who's they're getting good production out of Ernie Clement? Is he going to be somebody who is going to be contributing all the way through? Doesn't seem like it. Miles Straw is getting a lot of playing time, and he's not somebody who wants being in the mix a lot. If the Guardians, for all their outfield problems, couldn't use them.
Yep.
Yeah, it's that throws a red flag a little bit. So I'm fascinated by how they've been doing it. And so I can't speak to them in terms of, it doesn't seem like they should be able to continue doing what they're doing. And it seems like they'll have to reinforce their roster somehow. But in this present state, I think it's just, I'm interested in seeing what guys look like for myself over the course of 3 games and make some better determination in terms of how are they doing this mix? I think it's pretty good problem solving, but also does feel a little bit random.
If you want a conspiracy theory, maybe they're cheating. I'm joking. Don't get mad at me.
The sign stealers at Rogers Center in center field, white t-shirt guy. Yeah.
Bo Bichette's got a 914 OPS at home. Vlad Jr. has only hit 2 home runs on the road this year. He's got 7 homers at home. He's got a 901 OPS. Barger, as you mentioned, 862 OPS. Varsho, 955 OPS. They are absolutely crushing at home. You get them away from Toronto, boy, they get vulnerable real fast.
Maybe they're the traject addicts as well.
Bo Bichette on the road has a 566 OPS, Jim.
Yeah.
That is a gigantic difference. A 914 OPS at home drops to 566 on the road. That's 2 completely different players. That's All-Star Brooks Baldwin. I can't make sense of it. And I wonder, I'm going to have to do some more homework on Toronto and read up. Ben Nicholson-Smith does a fantastic job covering the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm going to have to see what he has written about this whole home and away split. And this is important because the White Sox go to Toronto this weekend. They have Toronto at home after the series against the Colorado Rockies. The White Sox can get blasted out of Canada, watch the same team come into Chicago, and the White Sox win that series because the Blue Jays can't hit on the road.
And I was curious because, having talked about 2 teams now that have serious home road disparities, I wondered, is this something that's happening league wide? And not really. Looking at Baseball Reference, home and away, home 725 OPS, away 700 OPS. So 25 point split. That seems normal. So talking hundreds of points, not normal.
Not normal. Yeah. So we'll see how this weekend goes for the White Sox, but that's something to watch, is just how well and how they're doing it for the Blue Jays at home this year. They are a completely different offensive team hitting at home than on the road. And then for this podcast episode, again, we'll recap the action in Toronto in our next episode that we'll record on Sunday night. But we want to shift some attention to the minor leagues, as with Andrew Vaughn being traded, you could read Jim's column on SoxMachine.com about chatting with Andrew Vaughn and his experience with the White Sox now that Vaughn is with the AAA affiliate for the Milwaukee Brewers in Nashville, and that's where Jim lives. So, Jim, I got to ask, how's Andrew Vaughn?
He's Andrew Vaughn.
All right. So nothing changed.
Yeah. Nothing, not really. Like he said, he was surprised. He said that it's been a whirlwind for him, but in terms of, his answers, very polite, very professional, just focused on the task at hand. He wants to get back to the majors. A tougher task, I think, in Milwaukee, just when you look at who's there, Rhys Hoskins at first, Christian Yelich at DH, Jake Bauers being a good complement at both positions right now. Those positions are kind of spoken for. Maybe if he starts hitting like you would expect him to at AAA, like he seems like somebody could be one of those big AAA numbers, less so at the major league level. But if he makes himself compelling, they're talking about how is he going to be one of our 9 bats in the lineup, and that brings the outfield into play. And I asked him about that, and he said whatever gets me in the lineup. So he wants to be back. Doesn't seem like there's any ill will towards the White Sox. He knew he had stuff to work on at AAA, or was content with, or not content necessarily, but just he accepted it, and he's now at AAA with Milwaukee. Like he sees that it's a playing for a contending team is even tougher standards in terms of getting there. So he's got improvement ahead of him, and seems like that he's trying not to look past that.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to go chat with Andrew Vaughn.
It's very convenient. It's like 15 minutes from my house. Yeah.
The other player on Thursday night making his debut in AAA for the Chicago White Sox, Noah Schultz. Now, when you look at the box score, it's not pretty. Schultz went 5 1/3 innings, allowed 8 hits, 6 earned runs. He walked 1. He struck out 5. He did allow a home run. 86 pitches, 60 strikes for Noah Schultz. And this is important for Schultz to be in AAA, especially for us at Sox Machine, because now we get StatCast data for Noah Schultz. And out of the 86 pitches that Noah Schultz threw, 39 two-seam fastballs, 32 curveballs. I did not know that registered as a curveball as far as his breaking pitch. Just 2 sliders, 5 changeups, and 8 four-seam fastballs. I'm sorry. His average pitch velocity on the two-seamer was 95.5 miles per hour. His curveball is 82. His four-seamer is at 96 miles an hour. So that's the first start. And I know you're going to write more about this, Jim, on SoxMachine.com with the minor keys. And cap tip to the future Sox guys, they do a fantastic job of getting the video highlights and posting them on social media. But the thing about Noah Schultz that James Fegan texted us that I was not aware of is in AAA, they use the same baseball as the majors, which means that the baseball that Noah Schultz was using in Birmingham is completely different than the one that he's now throwing in Charlotte. And I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to register that type of information. Are pitches going to be different for Noah Schultz, or is that where we are right now and wait and see to see just how close Noah Schultz is to the major leagues? That despite being in AAA doesn't mean that, he could be in Chicago tomorrow, right?
No, I think there's going to be, some development in terms of his pitch mix. Like he was working a lot with his cutter in Birmingham, and Brian Bannister talked about James didn't like what it was doing to his mechanics. Didn't like that it didn't mesh well with his pitch mix. Kind of threw his rest of his strike throwing game off. The walk rate really spiked at Birmingham. Schultz, for as tall as he is, like strike throwing has never been a problem. So seeing the clusters of walks 3, 4, 5 a game over 4, 5, 6 innings is more than you want to see. So the fact that he went to Charlotte, didn't throw cutters, and to clarify in his pitch mix, I would consider the curveball a slider. Everybody calls it a slider when you talk to people. So I would expect with Schultz, just because he does change speeds and tilts on it, that you'll probably see some weird classifications. I don't think they clean up the data as well for AAA as they do for the majors. Okay. So, when he's throwing his changeup, that might look a little bit different since that's like a seam effects, and that might be harder. Some might be conflated with sinkers. But seeing him throw strikes, I think was maybe the most important thing. Also the velocity being fine, like, averaging 95, 96, that's in line with where he should be. So 2 out of 3 things are fine. It's just a matter of, being effective. And I think as we go along here with him in AAA, righties really hit him surprisingly well in Birmingham. And that's part of the reason why they were working on a cutter, was thinking that might be the solution to get righties off the slider or the sinker when the slider is not working exactly the way Schultz wants it to work. The thing that kind of confused me in terms of where he was at the end of 2024 and what he's looked like so far this year is I thought at the end of last year, the 4-seam fastball up in the zone was his weapon against righties to stop looking like, change eye levels and stop looking at like thigh high and lower sinkers and sliders. If the pitch doesn't break the right way, I can get my barrel on it, pull to left field. The 4-seam fastball up and away seemed to be very effective for him at the end of the year and seemed to catch the Southern League off guard. And then this year it's been more or less, not necessarily scrapped, but an afterthought. You're taking the back seat to the cutter and the changeup. And so like he threw 8 4-seamers and, to get 3 whiffs on them. So I think I would like to see that come back into his mix more as they figure out his effectiveness against righties. But that's probably what I'm looking at between, I guess, watching Schultz between now and whenever he gets called to the majors is strike throwing, velocity, and then what are righties doing to him?
Okay. No, that's good to know. And again, now having StatCast, now knowing that he's throwing the same baseball as they're throwing in the major leagues, I am curious to know if it is impacting any of his pitches, if his pitches now work differently because that he's just using a different baseball. That'd be pretty drastic, but we've already seen how drastic the game could change by literally just changing the baseball. But it's good to see that Schultz is in AAA. And again, the runs allowed, not great, but it's just his first start. 60 strikes, though, on 86 pitches. To Jim's point, living in the zone, that is a good sign. So I am eager to see what Noah Schultz does in his second start with the Charlotte Knights, but that's another top prospect that is closer to join the Chicago White Sox in the upcoming years. And then finally, of course, I've been talking about this topic because it's one of my favorites, the College World Series. The College World Series, we have our championship. It is what I predicted in my last post on Sox Machine, previewing the College World Series. It is Coastal Carolina, a 26-game winning streak that they are bringing to the championship against LSU. And you're going to have Cade Anderson starting one of those games. Not yet known if he's going to be starting game 1 or game 2, but this is a Saturday, Sunday, and if necessary, Monday 3-game series against Coastal Carolina and LSU. Should be a great matchup. But LSU's in the championship game, Jim, because Arkansas went full White Sox. And as we know, you never go full White Sox, especially in the College World Series. And it was such defensive blunders, Jim, by Arkansas that it went from, I don't know what the mental lapse is here, to, oh my gosh, the Arkansas left fielder just got Chase Mydroth and then not able to make the line drive catch, deflecting off the top of the glove and going to the outfield, range from mental lapse to, oh my God, to heartbreaking in just 3 at-bats. And that's kind of where I'm at now for the Arkansas Razorbacks, is just heartbreak. And I feel for them, because they're just college kids. Whereas if this happened to the White Sox, we're like, just another White Sox game.
Yeah, I mean, you did have like the Lenine Sosa decision and then the Mydroth thing happening back to back.
Yeah.
You're thrown to the wrong base, then ball off the head. Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of like watching the Little League World Series, which I always feel is weird that it's on ESPN. Just, thinking about like how I reacted to tough games and then like having cameras, not having cameras on me, like thank God I didn't, just because I don't know what my face was doing or how I was reacting. But right. I know especially at certain ages, you have, strong feelings when you screw up. And, you're happy to not, happy to be doing that before the age of cell phones, to where like, it's more or less two people remember, maybe even nobody remembers it. But in this case, like when you have videos going around and, College World Series, while it is, you're talking about adults in terms of ages, it is a lot like the NCAA tournament in terms of these being the biggest games these players will ever play. Like, even if they get to the minors and play a couple of years, this will be the stage. This will be what they've been playing for. This is what they've been invested in as a team. Like, they might go to A-ball for a couple of years, but they're not going to be invested in like the Kannapolis Cannonballers winning a Carolina League title the way they are invested in Arkansas winning a College World Series title. So when you see these, this kind of collapse, and you see the crying, just like, it's tough to watch. And also just, it's feelings probably those players didn't know they had.
Yeah, Charles Davalon was the Arkansas left fielder, and he'll go in the Major League Baseball draft in a few weeks from Montreal. Jim transferred to Arkansas. Yeah. He'll be taken probably between rounds, the second to the fourth round. But now you have the draft combine going on. I don't think he's going to make the trek from Omaha to the draft combine. I would advise him not to do that. Just, take some days off, stay away from baseball. Maybe don't watch the College World Series final. But he'll be asked about it. Like, how do you bounce back from that? He only had one error the entire season, just one. And that was his second. And it hit him in the face because he slipped in the outfield. You want to talk about a team pressing. Arkansas pressed. And a little bit is because their head coach, Dave Van Horn, still hasn't won a national championship. With all the success the Arkansas Razorbacks have had in recent years, they're one of the premier programs in all of college baseball. I wonder if that got to Arkansas a little bit, is trying to win one for Coach Van Horn before he decides to retire, because he's admitted that it's not long before he decides to hand it up and somebody else is going to be running Arkansas. But if you've been watching the College World Series and you saw the highlights, poor Arkansas went full White Sox, and you never go full White Sox. But
yeah, I guess, Chase Mydroth, he bounced back from that.
He sure did.
It's embarrassing, but he's been playing fine since. Like, another guy I think of in terms of somebody who's been able to redefine himself, Trent Grisham. He had that really costly error for Milwaukee in right field against Washington. And then, now he's back, being a key component for the Yankees, hit a bunch of homers there, and, being considered a, true outfielder, reliable defensively, and, it's an afterthought. So players move on past it. And, it's probably best that he goes in the draft, just to not have to try to worry about getting back to the College World. It might be like an open wound a little bit, but in terms of, it is a way to turn the page when your next game won't be with Arkansas, but will be with a different team, and a fan base that might not associate you at that moment. Some will, but others will have never heard of you until you get to like AAA. And that might be a decent place to be. Like, it's certainly better, I think, in certain respect, to going back to Arkansas for, like, say, your junior season, and then needing an entire season to hope that you make up for that one moment, and that might be impossible. So it could be the draft and the draft combine and whatever could be just a very a pleasant change of pace for him, because it won't be Arkansas fans thinking about what he did. It'll be maybe White Sox fans wondering, who is this guy and can he hit?
Yeah, well, he can. I mean, he's got great contact skills. If you do watch the College World Series, if you're wondering who should I be watching out for, just for any Major League Baseball fan, Cade Anderson, the left-handed pitcher for LSU, texting people that are at the draft combine down in Phoenix, asking them follow-up questions about some of the exit velocities and the performances that we have seen. Two things. One, for those on the JoJo Parker bandwagon, it's becoming more likely that he's not going to be available to the White Sox at pick 10, that he's been performing so well the draft combine that he could already be off the board. So that's going to be tough for the White Sox. I know that he's on their radar, but other teams ahead of the White Sox are starting to like JoJo Parker, as he's had a really strong draft combine. But in this College World Series, Cade Anderson, the ace for LSU, left-handed pitcher, gives me strong Max Fried vibes of the, Atlanta Braves and now the New York Yankees. 4-pitch mix. He could go number 1 overall to the Washington Nationals if they decide to not go the Ethan Holiday direction. So if you want to see someone that could go number 1 overall, possibly that is LSU starting pitcher Cade Anderson. But Coastal Carolina is just a solid team. They do everything right. This is going to be a fun College World Series. LSU, one of the best, if not the best, college baseball program right now, with them in Tennessee, going up against a Coastal Carolina team, the Fighting Zach Remelards, and their 26-game winning streak. You can catch that action on ESPN Saturday and Sunday, games 1 and 2, and if necessary, game 3 on Monday. I haven't looked up the Jello shots, but LSU had already purchased, last I looked, over 17,000 Jello shots. So I think they got it in the bag this year for the Jello shot competition. And that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you just discovered the Sox Machine Podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. You can also watch and listen to our content on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine. If you do watch our videos on our YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. You can follow us on social media. We're on all the social media platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow James. He's at JR Fegan. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. We are on Blue Sky. We made it simple. We're at SoxMachine.com, jrfegan.soxmachine.com, and josh.soxmachine.com on Blue Sky. If you want our full coverage of the Chicago White Sox and have ad-free versions of both the podcast and the website, and have the comment section unlocked, and additional benefits as well, like a discount in the Sox Machine store, and even an opportunity to join our Veterans Committee that gets you into the group chat so you can directly text James and find out what all the gossip and rumors are coming out of the White Sox clubhouse and what he's hearing around Major League Baseball. You can sign up at SoxMachine.com. Monthly plans start at $5, and we also give discounts on annual subscriptions. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.
It's time to turn your daydream into your dream job. Wix gives you the power to turn your passion into a moneymaker with a website that fits your unique vision and drives you towards your goals. Let your ideas flow with AI tools that guide you, but give you full control and flexibility. Manage your business from one dashboard and keep it growing with built-in marketing features. Get everything you need to turn your part-time passion into a full-time business. Go to Wix.com.